Hello, Debate Art. Hi, Debate Art. This is the second time recording this, but I wanted to go over how to defeat a better debater than you in a debate, or how to defeat a good debater. Um, I mean, part of it is you find something they're passionate about that they're just stubborn on and wrong-headed on, and then you challenge them to a debate. Now, I think that Benjamin hasn't, wanted to debate me on this. I think because he knows he's wrong, but he's stubborn. He wants to stick to his position for emotional reasons. But here it is. It's resolved. Israel is committing genocide in Gaza, and I'm going to show you how to take apart the arguments of Benjamin here. So that's what the debate is about. Israel committing genocide in Gaza. Benjamin has to prove that they are. David really doesn't have to prove anything. He just has to knock down Benjamin's arguments. David starts the debate with the description area where he goes, the definition contained in Article 2 of the Convention describes genocide as a crime committed with the intent to destroy a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group in whole or in part. It does not include political groups or so-called cultural genocide. Okay, he mentions, David mentions this argument here because he's likely anticipating that Benjamin's going to make some sort of cultural genocide argument. And a lot of people will bring up cultural genocide arguments when they're being hyperbolic. We're going to skip all of David's arguments, because I just want to focus on the rebuttals. And the rebuttals are usually more important in a debate like this than your initial arguments anyway. Matter of fact, when you're arguing, you mostly should be anticipating what arguments they make and just go ahead and provide rebuttals for them beforehand. You actually want to talk about their arguments before they do, because part of what that does is it doing that will make the arguments seem worse. The arguments aren't worse just because you bring them up, but they'll make them seem worse. Anyway, let's go ahead and look at Benjamin's arguments. He goes, meaning of genocidal intent. Thank you, David. Meaning of genocidal intent. Scholars have openly pointed out governments do not openly admit to committing genocidal acts. They always have excuses like it was just war or they were just trying to reestablish law and order. Okay. This is fucking meaningless. Okay, governments deny genocide. Cool story, bro. A government denying genocide, by the way, is not an admission of genocide. So I don't see why this argument is even mentioned. Alright? And I want to point out what this debate is not about. Because what you're going to see here is you're going to see arguments that are completely irrelevant and not what it's about. This debate, we only care about proving Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. That's the only thing we care about, whether Benjamin proves that or not. So if he shows Israel is evil, or if he shows that they've wronged Palestinians, or he shows war crimes, or he shows anything like that, and you accept that, that's not good enough for him to win. That is just stuff he's doing to they're red herrings, essentially. And if he brings it up, which he's going to, if he brings it up, then it's just him distracting the judges. It doesn't matter. I disagree with much of that, but that's beside the point, because you don't need to argue against everything you disagree with. You only need to argue in favor of the resolution, which is Israel's committing genocide in Gaza. So what are his arguments? The first one, this is not an argument. I guess he's setting the stage here. Affirming that Palestinians are a national group with national rights. That's fucking pointless to make that argument also. It has nothing to do with whether they're being genocided or not. It's a pointless argument, and it's dumb. And well, I mean, maybe some other time I can get into why the right of self-determination is obviously wrong. And why a lot of these things he's mentioning here already just don't apply to Palestinian people. but it just know that it's pointless to bring up. There's no point in it. Demonstrating historical and contemporary oppression of Palestinians. Dude, your burden is to prove genocide, not oppression. Okay? Definitely not oppression. If you notice, he's using a lot of sources from Al Jazeera. You got a source here, a source here. I think you're going to see a few more sources later on, and that's important to take a look at for a couple reasons. And I'm not here to defend David's argument or to argue against it, but he's likely going to bring up the fact that a lot of this is statements from IDF that he's using. And while we shouldn't necessarily reject them out of hand, you know, you don't want your argument to lean so heavily on that, especially when you're looking at Twitter statuses. So these aren't necessarily even like official statements from the government. It's Twitter. And IDF is obviously going to have some reason to use propaganda here. Not that propaganda is necessarily incorrect or lies necessarily either. So, as a national group with national rights, we don't need to go over that. Demonstrating historical and contemporary oppression of Palestinians. Again, it doesn't matter. None of this matters. That doesn't prove genocide. No, it'd be nice if it did. You'd win, but it doesn't. Again, more Al Jazeera statements. Or was that the same ones? Yeah, the same ones are still in there. Okay. Providing evidence that Israel has been committing some form of genocide in Gaza for a long time. Okay, now we're getting to the arguments. Now we are. But look at all the space that David wasted. And this is why you can beat a better debater, especially when they get emotional like that. And I've already looked at how much space it was, and that's about 3,800 characters in a 10,000 character debate. So this is 3,800 character space that he could have been strengthening his arguments, and he doesn't. He just goes off on some random tangent. Okay, so providing evidence that Israel has been committing some forms of genocide in Gaza for a long time. And he brings up genocide by attrition. It occurs when a group is stripped of human rights, political, civil, and economic. David's already defined genocide, and he does not see it as stripping you of your human rights, political, civil, or economic. And it's in the description of the debate. So the time to debate that definition is in the comment section or in private messages to arrange a better definition. And this is what he's pointing out here is similar to just cultural genocide. He's arguing for cultural genocide here. It's not it's not really necessarily true, but imagine if it is true. You don't need that to prove your point. Genocide by attrition, and then he points to a PubMed article. Who knows who read that? That's PubMed? Isn't that for like medical studies and stuff like that? Genocide by attrition. The Warsaw Ghetto and Democratic Kampuchea and Sudan. Was state. Okay. So that's just some people wanting to use the word genocide for attention or to insert like more urgency into the arguments that they have. Even before the current conflict, there were several scholars, intellectual, and media outlets referring to the situation in Gaza as genocide, since Israel was intentionally creating conditions calculated to destroy the Gazan populace. Oh, scholars and intellectuals, huh? Let's see who he cites here. Muhammad Najim. Alright, like if we just ignore the fact that his name is Muhammad Najim and that doesn't necessarily mean he's biased, let's see if he is biased. Thesis submitted to Faculty of Graduate Studies at the University of Manitoba. Let's go down. To my cousin Aisha, who fell with her husband and unborn baby in 2014, aggression on Gaza. So right away, the writer of the paper lets you know he's biased. And who can blame him? If I had a cousin who died in due to an Israeli bomb or something in Gaza, there's no doubt I'd be biased also. My family in Palestine, as well as my wife Brushna. This is who he's going for. The human. Okay, so he has family there. This guy is a guy that has a lot of emotion invested in this. You know, the death of a loved one, a loss of family over there suffering. So this is not one. This is kind of an appeal to authority, intellectuals, and media outlets. Okay, like first of all, if you say media outlet, I'm assuming it's a fucking lie to start with. The media sucks. Intellectuals are just dishonest people in general, and they have ivory tower thinking. But this is not even. And plus, there's intellectuals that disagree on things, and anybody can call themselves an intellectual. I mean, what the fuck does that even mean? So we see that one he cited was clearly biased. The charity Save the Children says children make up half of Gaza's populations. Conditions in Gaza have deteriorated in the 16 years since the blockade was imposed. 80% of Gazans live in poverty without access to clean water, electricity at crisis levels before the latest violence. I wonder why. What is this? Is this the same source? Yeah, it's the same source. He used the same source for that too. Okay. So again, they're using the same source. Life becomes impossible in Gaza. Why? We should examine why is there not enough money in Gaza for these people to eat? Why is there not enough clean water and electricity? I mean, if they just had billions of dollars, maybe they could fix their infrastructure. They could have clean water. They could have nice electricity and nice hospitals and plenty of stuff. Matter of fact, if they had billions of dollars, they could probably turn this place into a tourist destination. What is this? U.S. Government Accountability Office. Fast facts. Since 1993, the government has provided more than $7.6 billion in assistance to Palestinians. Oh man, $7.6 billion? It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And what are they doing with the money? Let's see. Oh, here's what people in Gaza are doing with the money. Predominantly Hamas. Gaza is plagued by poverty, but Hamas has no shortage of cash. Where does it come from? I don't know. My guess is the $9 billion fucking dollars that they've been getting since the 90s. Hamas has investment portfolios of real estate and other assets worth $500 million, says experts, and an annual military budget of $350 million. Okay, well, I think that tells you where it went. $350 million a year, plus $500 million assets, plus who knows what other secret projects they got going on. And this is to build, a military. This is to build weapons of war. This is to build missiles that they launch into Israel on a daily basis. It's to build these underground tunnels. The money's being diverted away from people that need it to Hamas. And partially that's their own fault. Why is it their own fault? Well, and Benjamin's going to make some arguments later, and I'll show you them, but he's going to argue that because military officials within Israel, or some military officials within Israel, who are certainly not like representative of the government as a whole, but they blame the Palestinians themselves for a lot of what's going on. And I gotta say, it's fair. Hamas are elected into office. They make up most of the public officials in Gaza, and they essentially also make up the military wing of for these Palestinians. They make up their military wing, so the citizens are supporting it. It's no different than the American government blaming people that literally voted Nazis in office for Hitler coming into power and starting World War II. Yeah, they're partially to blame. Presenting a few war crimes Israel is currently committing. This is Okay, let's say it is proof. We'll say it's proof. Gaza's main road artery, which Israel designates as a safe corridor, has become a corridor of horror where Palestinians have randomly been bombed, executed, forcibly disappeared, tortured, and humiliated. Meanwhile, Israeli army continued to bombard the territory and have repeatedly declared a safe area where Palestinians north could seek safety. The areas where the evacuation grid system told the Palestinians to flee were immediately targeted. And citation is Al Jazeera. Okay, why is Al Jazeera important? Well, Al Jazeera is funded by the Qatari government. The Qatari government funds almost all of Al Jazeera. They don't make much money. I mean, I think they might have some YouTube ad revenue, but Al Thani financed the launch of Al Jazeera's $137 million loan. A loan he probably does not expect to get paid back. They borrowed another $130 million to the Qatari government. And the Qatari government has, look at this, they support Hamas. They're very supportive of extremists, of Islamic extremists. They have transferred more than $1.8 billion to Hamas in 2012 for weapons. So that's even more money that could be sent to the people going to arming terrorists. But so let's ignore the fact that Al Jazeera is basically, let's just call it what it is. They're the propaganda wing of Hamas. Alright? And here is what the IDF says about it. I think this guy's an IDF spokesman, and he's going to talk about what's going on down there. Let's listen for just 10 seconds.
Hamas has both issued warnings to their civilians not to evacuate, and when people didn't listen to those warnings of Hamas, they have actually stopped civilians and they have stopped convoys of Gazan civilians trying to flee from the situation.
Okay, so when Israel launched warnings so that Palestinians could flee areas they're going to target, legitimate military targets, then what's happened is Hamas has came there and said, no, you're not leaving. You're staying here. They use these people as shields. And then, you know, and the reason they do it is purely for propaganda purposes. And you can say, okay, well, in this situation, you can say, well, IDF is biased. Well, yeah. Yeah, they are. And Al Jazeera is biased. And at best, that wipes each other out. But then I got to ask you, you know, who are you believing? Because Al Jazeera is getting their information directly from Hamas at the very least. Hamas is saying that these areas are being bombed and all this, and that they're probably even claiming that they're letting civilians go. So who do we believe? Do we believe Islamic extremists, which are famous for beheading reporters for reporting the wrong way, for throwing homosexuals off of buildings, for you know, the same people that randomly went into Israel and started targeting civilians, or do we believe the Israeli government? And I think, given the history of Hamas's attacks on civilians and the lack of history of Israelis going everywhere and doing it, then I would say that, you know, you should probably believe the IDF over Hamas. Let's keep reading. Since the launch of recent military campaign in Gaza, the Israeli army has widely and indiscriminately targeted civilians and civilian objects, inflicted mass destruction, with over 60% in homes in Gaza destroyed or damaged. Okay, so you see why this is kind of the premise following the conclusion, right? Indiscriminately targeted civilians and civilian objects. And then you go, what's the premise for that? This is the premise right here. 60% of homes in Gaza destroyed or damaged. Okay, why is this? Well, Hamas actually boards up in hospitals. They will take over people's houses. If you don't let them stay there, they will kill you. there's no way to avoid civilian casualties when you get the military hiding in people's homes, and that's why American military, for example, other Western militaries aren't allowed to do stuff like that because they don't want to see civilians die unnecessarily. They've Well, Israel leaves no place of safe in Gaza. We've already shown that wrong when we addressed Al Jazeera's bullshit. To mass murder, assassination, inflicts conditions life calculated to bring about physical destruction and causing serious bodily and mentally harm, amounting to acts of genocide. Untrue. So you haven't proven shit here. You proved that civilians get in the way sometimes of bombs. And I guess the alternative is, the alternative to avoid a high civilian casualty here is just to not react at all. And that's not an option. Once you commit a terrorist attack against a nation like that, a large-scale terrorist attack, there's going to be retaliation. And they're going to try to destroy that terrorist organization by any means necessary. And unfortunately, the people in the Gaza Strip are impacted. Many of them did have nothing to do with this. But a lot of them have has to do with this. A lot of them do support Hamas. A lot of them voted them into office. A lot of them give them support in other ways. And sometimes not voluntarily. So shit happens. Gaza is now a different color from space. It's a different texture. Yeah, maybe you don't incite a war with somebody that can completely dominate you so easily. The risk of famine is growing and lack of food, water, and medicine making the situation catastrophic. Okay? And you need to show that this is their own doing. It's not Israel being mean. They're not going to let aid. I guess the argument here would be, they should let the aid in. They should let the billions that funded their enemy continue to flow in. The billions that are taken away from civilians and put into the hands of Hamas should just go and go back to them so these people can get their basic necessities. And it's not something that they like to do. Lately they have actually been allowing food drops and stuff like that. So they have softened on the position. But none of that is intended to target civilians, okay? The lack of food, water, medicines, okay, it's just, you don't want that stuff going to the enemy. And like I said, if you see it going to like places like Ukraine, you see food and aid going there, why does that happen? Russia has no choice. They wouldn't let that shit in either if they had a choice. And what's the other option? They get nuked and everybody there loses their life. So Russia is forced to allow us to give whatever aid we feel like giving to Ukraine. It's to their own detriment. And you see how much that's hurt Russia. So what happens when you let the enemy get aid? I don't know. I think Ukrainians are killing like 10 Russians for every one Ukrainian dead. They have to kill a lot more. They have to kill like 20 to 1 to win the war. But they're killing 10 to 1. And that's what happens when you allow aid to go to the enemy. Then they have an unlimited budget to just kill you with. Analysis of Israeli intent based on their words and actions. Israeli government officials declared that total siege means no food, fuel, electricity, or water allowed to enter for the 2.3 million people in Gaza since October 9th, in addition to blocking medical supplies and equipment. Okay, yes, they denied the enemy a chance. How do you do that? How do you make sure that not a single soldier is getting it? Especially when we know what's going to happen. You send aid in there, what is going to happen? Still, the civilians aren't getting it. The soldiers that you're using to defend the Gaza region, that's who you're sending that to. You want them to hold up for it. They'll let everybody die. These are extremists. If it takes every single man, woman, and child there to starve to death so they can pwn Israel, they'll do it. Uh, Notably, Israel has perpetrated crimes of persecution and the crime of apartheid. Not really, but I mean, you have Palestinians there that are doctors and lawyers and professionals of all types of varieties. And in fact, the Palestinians within Israel who live peacefully among Israelis tend to do better than the general population. It's not a system of apartheid. Uh, but even if it was, that's not evidence of genocide. You can't say they're indiscriminately killing a bunch of civilians on purpose just because they are discriminatory towards them. UN points to evidences of genocidal incitement against Palestinians. A group of united... What does that mean? Genocidal incitement. Oh, like you're inciting Palestinians to commit acts of terror against you? Evidence of increasing genocidal... A group of United Nations experts. And I want to show you something here. Let's click on this link. United Nations experts. Who are these? Let's see if there's a name to these people. Or if this is just bullshit. Reuters. UN experts point to evidence of genocidal incitement against Palestinians. Oh, this is an actual news agency. I'm sure they're not pieces of shits who would just make a bullshit quote up and not put a name behind the quote so there's some accountability for what's said. Geneva, November 16th. A group of United Nations experts said Thursday there was evidence of increasing genocidal intent. What is this ad here? Evidence of increase. Anyway, we are deeply disturbed by the failure of governments to heed our call and to achieve immediate ceasefire. The group of experts, which included several UN special rapporteurs, I guess that's how it's said in a statement, we're also profoundly concerned about the support of certain governments for Israel's strategy of warfare against the besieged population of Gaza, the failure of international system to mobilize to prevent genocide. UN experts have previously warned the Palestinian people were at grave risk of genocide. Guess what? This line under here, that's not a link. I'm clicking it. That's not a citation to who said this. So this is all bullshit. You're telling me experts said it, but you can't name them. Well, who the hell are you to tell me what experts said? Give me the names. Now I gotta wait for this to load. What is with all these new tabs? Get out of here. Oh, the page crashed. Okay, so let's open up a new tab and X that one. Okay. And I'm logged out because I think I got banned for a few minutes there. Let's see. Where is that debate? Where did you go? We have more to cover, people. There we go. Resolved. Alright. Okay, so we're on UN experts. Okay, and as we can see, who the fuck knows who they are? Israel officer named Bezalel Taleja openly embraced war crimes and genocide on CNN. The war is not just with Hamas, the war is with all civilians. That's your interpretation, bro. That is, but it doesn't mean anything. His father's on record saying, I still think that apartheid is the best thing in the world. Okay, at best this proves racism, and it proves one officer. How many officers, by the way, are in the Israeli military? Is that even something we can Google? How many officers are in the IDF? IDF? I don't know how many it is. Active personnel, 165,000. So at least probably 10,000 officers. I mean, that's not exactly an indictment against everybody. Racism was passed from father to son, leading Palestinian civilians to be legitimate targets in the current war. Okay, even if you said that there's a lot of Israeli military targeting civilians, that's not even proof of genocide. That's proof of a bunch of fucking assholes. It's a bunch of people that committed war crimes that Israel needs to hold accountable when the war's over. Yeah, and that's something the United States does. If we catch you targeting civilians, you get punished. 60% of Jews in Israel were racist and favored segregation in 2021. Okay, well, I kind of want to click on that to read what that means. But I won't. I'm just going to go and say that 60% of Jews targeting were racist and favor segregation. So you're using the fact they favor segregation to call them racist. Fine. You should probably say favor segregation and then, because I'm sure they weren't asked if they were racist and they said yes. However, what this is not showing is that they want to genocide anybody. You know, you can think of people as inferior to you without saying that you don't respect their right to live. It doesn't mean shit. And what does this mean, fair segregation? Let's just read. Blocked page. We notice you're running an ad blocker. I'm not running an ad. Alright, let's go to a different web browser. Alright. Here. We'll just go to a different web browser. That's fine. You know you're running an ad blocker. I'm not running a fucking ad blocker on Edge. I don't even use Edge. Okay. Forget that. They're just full of shit anyway. So I can't even see what was being said there. But I don't believe it's being quoted the right way. 60% of Jews favored segregation in 2020. I wonder if I can Google it. How many Jews favored segregation in 2021? I don't even know what the hell that means. Okay. I can't find it there. And I'm not going to spend all day looking for it. We are imposing a complete siege of Gaza. There will be no electricity, no food, no water, no fuel. Everything will be closed. We are fighting against human animals and we're acting accordingly. Israeli defense manager. And this is, of course, quoted by Al Jazeera. Again. Maybe he said that, though. Let me type that quote in. Let's see. We were fighting against human animals. But this is probably talking about Hamas, not Palestinians. He's saying that Hamas is human animals, I would assume. Why would you assume he means all Palestinians? Netanyahu is on record comparing Gaza to Amalek. In the Old Testament, after a people group attacked Israel, God commanded the Israelites to complete and annihilate Amalekites, to kill even their women and infants. So Netanyahu's comparing Palestinians. Okay, so let me just explain something about propaganda. When you send your military off to war, you make the other side out to be evil monster. It happens every time. And everybody does that. And it's not intent to commit genocide. Statements like that are scary because they can be used to commit genocide. But everyone says it. Go to any type of war that breaks out. The other side is just evil. You know, the war of Russia. Well, Russia is evil. They're monsters. And, you know, the scarier the war is, the more you got to paint in a broader brush like that. And ideally, you also paint them as people that are slightly stronger than you, and that it would take a real hero to defeat. That way you almost make your people feel slightly disadvantaged so they fight hard as hell. It doesn't mean commit genocide, and nor is it proof of genocide. Even Netanyahu wanting to commit genocide is not proof of genocide. Why don't you show the actual genocide, not the war crimes? Why don't you actually show some evidence of actual genocide? We're hitting our enemies with unprecedented force, he says. But I stress it's only the beginning. Our enemies have only just begun to pay the price. I won't detail what comes next. What I'm telling you is only the beginning. Okay, yeah, our enemies. He's talking about Hamas. I stress it's only the beginning. It'll get a lot worse for you. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to scare them. You're supposed to scare your enemies. You're supposed to make them want to surrender. Okay? If the scary statement gets them to surrender, guess what? He wins. If it gets them to run and hide instead of attacking, it gives you more of an advantage. Why wouldn't he tell the enemies this? The enemies listen to everything you say in public. So why wouldn't he tell the enemy that they're coming for him? Why wouldn't he scare them? On October 12, 2023, Mr. Isaac Herzog, President of Israel, stated, referring to Gaza, it's an entire nation out there that is responsible, not just Hamas. And which I already explained earlier. You know, Hamas is basically the military wing of the Gaza Strip. And Hamas was elected to most of the political positions within the country. It's not only Israel's leaders who are using such language. An interview with pro-Netanyahu Channel 14 called Israel to turn Gaza into Dresden. Israel's most watched news station published a report about left-leaning Israelis calling to dance on what used to be Gaza. Meanwhile, genocidal verbs to erase or flatten Gaza have become omnipresent on Israeli social media. It doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me that there's a lot of racist Jews out there. Okay? It doesn't surprise me, and it shouldn't surprise you, and it shouldn't surprise anybody. And it shouldn't surprise you also that after such horrific events that occurred to them, that people would be a little emotional about it and be a little bloodthirsty. It doesn't mean they're going to commit genocide. And these type of people that get these bloodthirsty urges usually aren't people in positions of power. You can't be normally, because you got to be kind of ruthless to gain power, and you can't be ruthless if you're drawn to emotions like that. You know, listing some agencies that judge Israel to be guilty of genocide. Agencies. A federal judge. Right here. Okay. That's a federal judge. There are lots of federal judges. Here's the thing, though. The federal judge. So who was making arguments to this federal judge? Defense for Children International. I want to show you something. Defense for Children International. It's just going to show Defense for Children International. Alright, let's see what happens here. Now I'm wondering, because there's a what I saw earlier was, if this does give some credibility away, saying if it really is an international organization like this, okay, it gives credibility to the fact that they're not being careful enough about not killing children, not the genocide part. But this is the first link I clicked on earlier, DCI-Palestine.org, and this is totally committed to just looking at Palestine-Israeli conflict. We'll skip that for now. Oh my goodness, what did I do? Here we go. Let's get back to those arguments. So we got a federal judge. Many Israeli youths don't want to serve in the army and help commit genocide. Of course. They're just like American youths. They've been brainwashed by TikTok and leftism. And leftism inherently is a suicidal ideology. You saw the guy that burned himself to death at protest of war. somebody that, just had provably wrong positions on things. And he died over, like, at least do your damn research before you die for a cause. International Court of Justice just ruled against and determined South Africa successfully argued that Israel's conduct plausibly could constitute genocide. It could constitute genocide? It's weasel language, dude. International concludes that unfolding crime of genocide in Gaza. This is all, and let me tell you something else. This is right here. This all right here is an appeal to authority. Most of this is appeals to authority. A lot of it is. This person said it. This person said it's genocide. This person says it's genocide. It's appeal to authority. Make your argument. Why is it genocide? No, war crimes don't count as genocide. Everybody commits war crimes. Everyone. Guess who gets punished for them? The losers. The answer to not getting convicted of war crimes is, as a nation state anyway, as an individual, yeah, you'll probably be held accountable if you live in a nation that's somewhat decent. But as far as like holding a country accountable for a war crime, it just only happens to losers. It's just like committing treason against your government and having a revolution against them. The only people that get convicted of treason are the ones that fail at it. You failed at your revolution, so your punishment is death. And next time, maybe make sure you win, so you don't die. I have to provide a lot of data supports the proposition. It's not really, dude. There can be zero doubt that Israel committed unimaginable war crimes. Yes, but what the fuck does that... Well, one, he's kind of just stating this without much proof, honestly. We went over the proof. It's not much. But, let's say they are. How is that evidence of genocide? This debate will mostly revolve around intention. Well, I disagree. I mean, but you've still failed to prove intention either way. But you have to prove that a genocide is going on, not that people want one, or that a lot of people would support one, or that, some random idiot said that they should make the Gaza Strip look like Dresden. That's not proof. To say that, hey, Palestinians themselves do hold some responsibility for what's going on now because they allowed Hamas to lead them. That's true. That doesn't mean you want to genocide them. That just means that the people who are... There are people who are feeling a little bit too sorry for what's going on here. Combined with inferences can make base their current actions and inexcusable rhetoric coming from top officials who was average soldier and citizen. The average soldier and citizen doesn't mean shit. Okay, if your average citizen or average soldier wants to commit genocide, that has nothing to do with the top brass. That's all comes together to form it very strong. You're wrong. So I think that anybody who made these arguments, if David came on here and argued exactly a lot of stuff I pointed out, and he put it in a more structured way, he'd easily crush Benjamin. And so that's how you defeat him. I wonder what his responses are, though. Let's take a look. We cannot trust the IDF. Yeah, I told you he'd point that out. Ethnic cleansing route. Has been judged in the past year. R1 Khan referenced an interview by experts to genocide is difficult to prove. She confirmed ethnic cleansing often constitutes genocide and has been judged. Yeah, of course, ethnic cleansing is genocide. I don't know that anybody would disagree with that, dude. The Paradigm Times. Israel reports that voluntary resettlement of Palestinians from Gaza is becoming an official party of the government. How the fuck would that be genocide? Resettling them. Barely scraping by prior to war, despite getting $9 billion of aid, because all that money was going to Hamas. We cannot trust the IDF. Well, we can probably trust them a little bit more than we can trust genocidal maniacs. Like actually admitted ones. They've at least Israel kind of like if they are genocidal, they deny it. They're like, oh, we're just going after Hamas, and it's unfortunate that Palestinians have to suffer as a result of it. But they also bear some responsibility, so don't feel too sorry for them. And meanwhile, Hamas and probably most Palestinians, to be honest with you, do want to eradicate Israel, and not in a way where it just stops being a country. It means they want to get all Jewish people out of the area, and they want all of Israel to be called Palestine. That's in their official documents, and that's why they always deny peace treaties and stuff like this. The IDF are borderline terrorists themselves. Hyperbole. That's what that is. That's what that's called. Hyperbole. Recently, Israel reports that the soldiers shot 3 hostages who emerged shirtless from a ruin while holding up a white flag. Yeah, I think I saw this, and I think what that ended up being was, here's what happens. They love doing this shit. The Hamas, they love getting like propaganda footage, so they'll fucking straight up shoot at you while holding. They'll send 3 guys holding white flags at kind of like as a shield, and they'll start shooting you from behind them. And of course, there probably won't be any sound on any clip or anything you see. Let's see if it even shows a clip. And even that, it really wouldn't prove genocide. It would just prove a couple of soldiers were assholes that did that. Israel says its soldiers. Why is Israel reporting it on themselves if they're genocidal? So do they want to punish them? Is that why? I'm not even going to disable the JavaScript right now to read that, but we'll just. Anyway, as you can see, this is largely bullshit. Amnesty Systematic Investigation 2014 conflict had these findings. Israel often accused Hamas of using human shields. This is about the 2014 conflict. But human shielding has a specific definition: forcibly bringing or keeping civilians in the area to prevent enemies from conducting military operations here. I mean, I think you're being, pedantic at this point. If you are forcibly bringing or keeping civilians in, like, a hospital, I guess by their Amnesty's definition, that would be human shielding. But if you just happen to put your military under a hospital and have it operate in a hospital, and those people are coming there voluntarily, then that's not human shielding. Okay, so this is weasel language. What does it matter? Whether they're forcibly keeping the civilians there or they're using them as shields. You can say, well, Amnesty disagrees with the definition. But we're using, common parlance here. And so when we say they're using as human shields, it doesn't mean they're necessarily forcing them into the area. They're not forcing a civilian to stay there when they put soldiers in their homes. They're not doing that. What they're doing is they're saying, can I sleep here for the night? And if the answer is no, they kill them. Or some other problem happens. So it's not. I mean, that would be very. I think by that definition, it wouldn't count. Amnesty International wouldn't count as human shielding. They also don't count keeping. I guess by that definition, they wouldn't count keeping a military base under a hospital or putting tunnels underneath like a school or anything and having your military sit there in hiding. That would count as human shielding. It regardless of what they say, that's human shielding, and I guess what they need to do is update their definition. Anyway, I just wanted to show you how to rip apart the arguments of a good debater, especially when you can get them emotionally engaged. If they happen to believe to be emotionally invested in something, like I'm sure Benjamin did do a lot of research. He mentioned in the comment of the debate that he did a lot of research. I have no doubt he did a lot of research. This is a lot of information to come across, and part of the problem with doing research is when you do it with the intent to argue a point, because then you run into confirmation bias, and you can make some pretty weird shit seem true by doing that. But I do doubt that Benjamin looked at this from both sides. So anyway, just good luck in your next debate, guys, and